Hello, everybody. Thank you again for joining Metaverse Summit Roadshow, which is a series of interviews with different Metaverse entrepreneurs, investors, and experts. Today, we are so honored to have Dr. Nadine Alameh. Thank you for joining us. So,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So actually, I had the pleasure of listening to Dr. Nadine Alameh's presentation in SIGGRAPH this year about geospatial. Dr. Nadine Alameh is the CEO of Open Geospatial Consortium. Could you tell me more about it? What is actually OGC?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I'm very excited. I'm here as much to learn. I think the metaverse is all so new to all of us, and we're all trying to figure out what it is. It's like, is it the next generation of the web? And where does everything we do fit? And how can we help? And how can we benefit from it? So I'm very, very excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me on this roadshow. I love this. So why am I here? So I always say I'm usually here for two reasons. One is geospatial. So, and geospatial is probably something not everybody's familiar with, but like you've seen at SIGGRAPH, if you use maps of any sort, right? If you're ordering an Uber or you have your car, right, and it's self-driving, or you're driving it, or you have a drone and you're flying everywhere. So anything that has a map eventually that manifests itself in places and routing and things to go to and navigate, that's usually geospatial, right? And as I said at SIGGRAPH, it can be the fun maps, which is map of my neighborhood, the Google Earth maps, the Google Maps, the Apple Maps, right? Or it can be the very serious maps, like the army maps, right? That's geospatial data, which, and by serious, I mean, you actually don't have just a picture, right, of a map, but actually, the buildings and the roads and the characteristics of everything, including trees and sidewalks and underground and the indoors of buildings. So it's that representation at the end of the day of everything that you see eventually on a map. That's geospatial. We call it space and time. So when you track something in space and time, the location, that's geospatial. And that's the Open Geospatial Consortium. So there are, thousands and thousands of geeks like me, right? And so we have a consortium for all the organizations that eventually either produce this data, right? My son is literally downstairs playing on PS5, the Spider-Man game, right? And I keep telling him, you see those buildings and how you navigate around them and how they actually change, and you stream the content and you see the roads. It's like, that's our data. That's geospatial data. And so we are the global organization for anybody producing this data or using it. And I think this is where you see already the metaverse, why I'm here, right? And why I'm interested. So we have a global consortium. So think about it, government agencies like NASA, right? Because all the Earth observation, the satellite imagery, right? You can actually use it as backdrop in those environments in the metaverse. So the NASA European Space Agency, all the defense agencies, but also Google, because we talk Google Map, Google Earth, the cloud, AWS, Apple. I mean, you can go on. And more recently, Epic Games. So you also see like, what? Because they found that they can use all this richness of data into the video game environment. And that's why the link with Unreal. So it's very interesting to me. We're geospatial people, right? So we have, maps and location and 3D. And now you hear us talk about Unreal Engine, right? And the whole idea is we're connecting. The metaverse is allowing us to connect all these worlds. and startups and so on. So it's just, I think it's very exciting to bring all of this to the metaverse and to see what we can do with it together. Does that help a little bit about OGC?
Of course, especially actually the example of video game. We have a lot of gamers, of course, in our audience, and the space and the time actually consists all of our reality, right? And also virtual reality, which is the metaverse, is consists of those two elements. So it's very vivid explanation. Thank you so much for explaining it in such a easy to understand way. So could you tell us more about, the open side of the OGC, meaning that what is the mission and value, and why is it so important to make it open?
Absolutely. So OGC is the largest organization for geospatial, and it's been around for 28 years, so like approaching 30 years, which is great. So think about it, metaverse people. We can give you 28 years of experience, right, to use in the metaverse. And I think it's because of the openness. So here's what I mean when we say open. And actually, if you since you were at SIGGRAPH, I was talking about FAIR, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. So think about, we're getting serious here, right? Think about the flooding or the wildfires or any disasters that have happened recently and happening today. I mean, no kidding. Today, anytime you're probably listening to this podcast, there's some natural disaster somewhere in this world, because this is where we are, right? In our journey as the earth and climate and everything. And think about it also. I was just talking about, we have data from NASA, we have data from the European Space Agency, we have data from Maxar, from Planet, we have people like Black Shark who can extract all this data in real time. We have cloud, we have virtual reality, augmented reality, la, 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 la. So doesn't that make you wonder, it's like, wow, you have everything, but I mean, billions of dollars are getting lost, and forget about that. We still die from floods and wildfires and hurricanes in 2022 when we're going to Mars. So something doesn't click. And what's not clicking is we're living in this world where there's so much data around us, right? So much data, but it's not easy to find when you actually need it. And when you find it, it's not easy to just get it and put it into your system, whatever application that is. And then it's very hard to link it to other data, the interoperability, interoperate. And then the reusability is, think about it. Doesn't it feel sometimes like every flood is like, it's the first time we got a flood? Oh, where do I get the data? How do I just like, we don't have these repeatable, applications and processes. So that's the FAIR. That's what we're trying to do here. It's like, enough. There's so much data from space, from Internet of Things, from sensors, from our phones, from our cars. We just we need to make it fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. And that happens when you open access to the data, right? That's the open part. So we have these standards, open standards, right? To connect. Why is this important for the metaverse? Because the metaverse is not really defined, right? It's this virtual world that's connected with the real world. It has the 3D, it has the gaming, it has the people characteristics, like people who want to sell things in it, and all of this. And if you think about it, will anybody have all of this all to themselves, by themselves? It's impossible. All this data and all these interactions are going to have to come from a gazillion places. And so the only way we're going to build a metaverse that's not just a demo, right? That's not just, let's build it, look how cool it is, but actually it remains with us sustainable over time, is when we agree that it's open. That's what we were talking about at SIGGRAPH, open metaverse. So you can get pieces can get data from me, you can get data from you, you can get data from the public sector, the private sector, but it actually comes together because we've agreed that this is an open environment supported by these standards that are also open. Does that, again, sometimes like we're too much of entrenched, I think, in our own worlds. So you let me know if it's actually coming through to people who are not familiar at all with open standards or geospatial.
Yeah, definitely. So I like the vision and the idea of FAIR, especially after 28 years of research. There are so many resources and so many insights. In the audience, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, builders, creators, game designers, developers, all different kind of profile. Could you maybe tell them what actually are the resources that they can leverage, and then maybe how they can also be contributing to the Open Geospatial Consortium? How can they be the new and innovative and also good for the society type of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I swear I'm not making this up for this podcast, but this morning, so my kids, they're like 2 boys, ages 10 and 14. And I think I learned more from them about the metaverse and video games, right? Because this is my life. And so they're off school today. And so I'm here, and my son was downstairs, as I mentioned, playing the Spider-Man game on the PS5. And he was like, so Mom, do you know these people behind those games? And I said, and it's like, and he's like, tell me, what would you do? It's like, because I keep talking about the metaverse, and he's like curious, of course. And of course he wants free stuff, right? So when I tell him I talk to people from Roblox and Epic Games, he's like, ooh, can they give me free stuff? But so what I told him is like, look at this Spider-Man game and imagine, right? If as the Spider-Man is actually, zooming through New York City, first of all, you can do it anywhere on Earth. And it's not because some graphic designer, drew a picture of New York or any place on Earth that resembles the real New York. We actually will give you the real New York, right? The actual buildings, right? And everything about them, the windows, the angles, the roofs, the inside, even the inside, right? It's real data. That's what we're talking about, like bridging, right? And I told him, imagine, right? Because over the pandemic, for example, there were, you could track the utilization of sidewalks in New York from Earth observation data, so from space. And it's like, imagine that we can give you all this data and you be flying through New York, but the data is actually in real time. It's not fake, it's not Hollywood. I keep saying it's not Hollywood, it's like real. So if something happens, you actually see it in your game. And that's very powerful. And then to scale that, right? Some of these applications, you talk about entrepreneurs, it blows my mind. Things that what was it that we showed at SIGGRAPH? The hand gliding, right? Over any mountain in the world that was developed by CGM reusing Unreal, right? And again, you have this ability to hand glide over any mountain in the world, and it's not fake, right? It's actually the real mountain, but in synthetic, right? And then it's adjusted based on your weather or your environment or the time of day or the time of the year and so on. And it's all, I keep saying, it's all real data. It's all scientific models, right? For gliding. It's not, how we used to think when I was growing up, video games are fake. This would be real. And I think that's why it's the metaverse. It's not a video game. It's something, it's like a universe, right? So what we can bring, I think, to the entrepreneurs is all this data that is available for underground or for indoor or any city in the world, you know, trees, roads, obstacles, you name it, right? So it's the ability to bring that into whatever application you want, right? What we can get out of it is, I think, is your ideas, is this, oh my God, you're telling me you have data about every mountain, every ocean in the world, then I can do this, right? I can do things that would blow your mind because you gave me this data, right? And I think this is what the entrepreneurs, you have an amazing, amazing opportunity. Whether it is, I mean, we were talking, some of our members, whether it's talking about, what was it? The going to get your driver's test in the metaverse. So instead of going to the Department of Vehicles and standing in line and you're going in, so you, the entrepreneurs, you can build this. You can build this application and sell it to a government agency somewhere where you can go in and take the test and it knows who you are. And you can even do the driving test online, right? In this virtual world. Amazing. And still my favorite is this climate gamification, right? We call it. So think about it, because I was just talking about disasters. So for decision makers, for these politicians that they don't know what we're talking about, right? Because they're at a totally different level. They want information and they make decisions and policies. But if we start to get them into this metaverse environment where we can play and we can show them what happens if you get 3 times the number of hurricanes next year. What happens to your city? You feel it, you experience it, right? You see the water rising, or you see the damage to the bridges. And because you're in the metaverse, you also see how much it costs. It's like this amazing simulation environment, right? And these are opportunities for entrepreneurs. So my ask is, because what we're doing here in this roadshow as the Open Geospatial Consortium at SIGGRAPH, I think we're all doing this. We're trying to bridge those gaps so that we can create this thing that's bigger than all of us. So I would invite you to come and join us. So OGC it's a membership organization at the end of the day. So you come in and you can connect with this community that has all the data and the models, right? It's not fake. This is complex stuff that looks simple and cool, but it's actually very complex. And you can come in and blow our minds with what you can do. Help us solve some real problems and create new opportunities, because we have made everything fair, right? We have lowered the barriers so you can be the entrepreneur you want it to be.
Definitely. So the real-time, real-world data actually is a huge treasure that is sitting there, opening there for the new era of entrepreneurs. And that is actually making some real-world impact, some examples that you already mentioned. So you're inviting the entrepreneurs also to join and then to discuss, to unlock the different exponential possibilities. Metaverse use cases can actually also change maybe geospatial ecosystem. So is there like a complementary effect as well from that point of view?
Oh, 100%, right? This is when like 1 + 1 is not 2, it's like 5 or 50, right? Because it's at this I think amazing point in time, right? That may not repeat for us here. That's why I think we're all excited. So I'll give you an example. So this topic has now, we're talking about it so much. We have 3D formats, we have streaming formats, we have digital twin standards, we have city models, we have water models, ocean models, I can go on, underground models. so this has been coming up so much. So now we have a metaverse working group in the Open Geospatial Consortium. And actually, we're meeting next week. So this is October 2022 in Singapore, and we have a session. And when I'm looking at the agenda for the session, so to give you a hint of, you know, what's happening. So for example, digital twin standards for expressing the real world, right? That's what we can work on. And that's why, you know, again, inviting people to join is, oh, you're using buildings and you're using trees and you're using benches. How are you describing them? Let's describe them the same way, or at least let's describe them in a way that they can match, they can interoperate. And that's not easy, right? So this opening up, when you open up, you know, as geospatial, we had our applications and now we have those entrepreneurs using it. This is where we would benefit from them participating, because they can tell us what they want for this next generation. So I'm looking at it also, is like, I was very interested to see the topic of semantics come up. You know, same thing. So you have, again, you take one of the, my favorite, and I showed it at SIGGRAPH videos, is this sort of like going through Central Park, right? So you see the trees, and the idea is, it's not drone trees, it's the trees as they appear from space, and then you link them to the characteristics of the trees. But maybe also, I met some amazing people later on at SIGGRAPH whose whole life apparently is like ecology and trees. So they have like even more information. And imagine what we can do when we start to link this up, right? And so you can do science in the metaverse, essentially, right? And I think this is, again, where, you know, as geospatial, we would benefit, because you're coming in with all these technologies that are not geospatial, right? The streaming, the interactions, the scaling, right? This is not geospatial. This is, you know, gaming, 3D graphics, you know, what was it, like, I mean, the Pixar stuff, right? The real video stuff. So this is all, if you bring it to the problems that we're trying to solve. I want to understand what's happening with climate change on a global scale, including what people do, right? I need you, just like you need me, right? Same thing, we talked about disasters. Same thing about when we talk about outer space, right? Because it doesn't have to be just the Earth. We're doing the same thing for the moon that we're doing for Earth. We have, you know, Jupiter, we have Mars. I mean, you can go on. It's like, think about the scale. And I think maybe it's the scaling factor. So we can help them scale their applications, and then they can help us actually, honestly, realize our dreams of using this data, because they have the technologies and the know-how from 3D, from streaming, from video stuff.
Yeah, amazing. So in the Web2 era, let's say, there are many entrepreneurs who are actually leveraging the state-of-art technology to create, social interaction, Instagram, TikTok, leveraging videos and text, right? And now, actually, maybe it's like the new era of entrepreneurship, the upcoming spatial computing, right? So people can actually leverage maybe the upcoming future hardware, Apple glasses, or some other different type of AR or VR gadgets to experience the world in real time in a totally different way. Hopefully your son is gonna, not only play Spider-Man in the PlayStation, but also experience, some other reality of somewhere in the earth or in the space. That's absolutely amazing. So
so what's really amazing, again, these are the possibilities that don't exist today, and this is for you entrepreneurs, and why we'd like to connect with you, because the examples of, so you're in the metaverse, but you want to stream, include content from a camera on the side of a street in real life. And this is where everything, when I say, right, everything is geospatial, right? Because where the camera is, what it's looking at, in which direction is all space and time. And then you want to link that location to a location in the metaverse. It also becomes geospatial, and this is all new. This is what an amazing time to be an entrepreneur.
For sure, for sure. So, as you mentioned, a lot of different groups and initiatives and companies are actually pushing, some standard around the metaverse to actually allow a more standardized building process. But it's an opportunity, also a challenge, right? How are you working together to try to set up the infrastructure level of the future of metaverse? And apart from the standard, do you think there are other challenges, but of course also opportunities that the consortium itself is discussing and is facing in a global level?
Yes. So I think, first of all, it's great to see this enthusiasm and this understanding that you're building something new and big, and you can't have all the pieces of it, by yourself, because in a way you're building a digital twin of the Earth. So how can one entity encapsulate all of this? It's impossible. And I think that's what we're seeing in the metaverse, and that's why the Metaverse Standards Forum, right, was founded. That's why I think we have such tight connections with Kronos, with the Open AR Cloud, with W3C, and with so many other organizations. I think it's a realization that the pieces have to come from everywhere, and we have to connect them. Hence the open and the open standards. And I think it's a very good thing to see something like the Metaverse Standards Forum be formed with such support early on in the journey of the metaverse, right? It's not after the fact. It's early on, which I think is really, really good, because standards are also a sign of collaboration. It's not easy. It's definitely, you said it yourself. It's not. So I'll tell you an example. So when I went to SIGGRAPH, it was all about Pixar and Unity talking about the format that they use to create these movies and these environments, and it's all 3D. So that community, right? So the video and the graphics community have their own formats, right, and their own ways of encoding the 3D objects and the layers and the scenes and all of this, right? That's great. But then we have our own formats for 3D tiling and the city models and all of that, because eventually every domain has had to use a building, right? Or a city, that's even better, right? But we had never had to use them together. And then you take that further. So we have the geospatial representation, right? You have, rooms and lines and polygons and, areas and how the topology, that's the technical part. And then think about it, there's a whole building industry, right? And you have people like the Building Smart organization who actually do this in CAD, right? And the computer assisted design, and they have their formats. And this is when it's tricky, because we have to figure out a way to make these 3 views for just a building, in this case, or a city, to actually, talk to each other, come together. There's not going to be one format or one thing. No, it's impossible, right? But we have to, for the metaverse, to be able to interoperate across these. And that's one example. And if you think, there are, way more examples, and that's where I keep coming back to the semantics of it, which is, each community has their own definitions and their way to do things. But if you're going to bring it all together for an entrepreneur to do quickly and make money, like not spend 10 years trying to figure all this out, we have to help them. And I think this is what the metadata, I keep talking about metadata because it's very important, but it's the Metaverse Standards Forum. It's so timely, I think.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So game engines are actually playing a very important role in this connection between real world and 3D simulation. Maybe the state of art is not real time yet. I suppose maybe the consortium also has a vision and a roadmap of what is the upcoming years going to look like. It's not a prediction, but maybe in your opinion, what are we seeing? Like in 5 years, what is the state of art we can achieve? And maybe further down the road, what would be the ideal state, like a situation that the Open Geospatial and also the Metaverse Standard Forum can achieve together? What would be kind of the scenario?
So I think that's the exciting thing of being, with something from the beginning, like the, Metaverse Standards Forum. So I think we're all, I always say that our lives sometimes, like in the Open Geospatial Consortium, it's like a reality TV. It's like you're watching something, it's, So I see, like in 5 years, everything that Cesium. So Cesium is an amazing company, and they've been sort of the champions in OGC for this kind of, linking with the metaverse, with the video gaming community, with the 3D community. And so what I see them doing with this, enabling these plugins in the Unreal Engine, is that it's essentially lowering the barriers for anybody to be able to ingest all of the 3D data that we have typically in the geospatial, community, right? I was very happy, was it last week? NVIDIA had their big event as well. And actually, I tweeted about it because it's so cool that they have now extensions in their Omniverse connecting to OGC data sources. Again, so I think what you'll see here is people, just like now, you're opening your phone and you have the map and whatever, and you don't know geospatial, right? You use it, you can even build your own maps and share it and whatever. And I think that's what will happen in 5 years. Everybody will be able to bring all these things together because we were successful setting, the foundation properly. And then it's up to the imagination. I hear applications that are cool, right? Like the gliding, like the surfing, all of this. I hear applications that are serious, like the training of soldiers, right? That's a big field, the serious gaming side. And this extension of this concept of digital twin of the earth, of the universe for the climate change, so real science. So I think maybe not all of this will happen in 5 years, but we're on the road, I think, to lowering the barriers for you guys, the entrepreneurs, the startups, to actually build applications that are useful for society at all levels, from entertainment to everyday life to helping us stay alive, right?
Yeah, for sure. So the entrepreneurs of tomorrow wouldn't be building, metaverse that is separated, enclosed from real life, but actually providing some real life use cases, education, social, but also a lot of other examples that we cannot list all of them today, right? So
totally.
This is really inspiring, I think, for our community. In the Metaverse Summit 2022, we all think it is only the beginning. And we are all here to discuss, to share the knowledge, and to imagine the future, to actually collaborate and build something together as well, right? So could you maybe tell us, like, operationally more, what is the this year's agenda and the mission of OGC, and then how can our community also be part of it?
Yes. So the mission right now is to make it easy for anybody to be able to plug into these data sources that I was talking about, right? So the focus is, for instance, and it's simple, it's on simple to use APIs so that you can connect. So you can get a map or a tile or a routing thing or a 3D thing, doesn't matter, right? The focus is on what we're calling cloud native geospatial standards, because all this data is eventually on the cloud, and it's this ability, again, what I was mentioning earlier, you don't know what's happening when you get a map on your phone, and this is what we want for everything, right? So when we're developing those cloud native geospatial standards, the idea is you put your data on the cloud in a certain format, and then it's native how you interact with it without being a geospatial expert, right? So I think that's the mission, is lowering the barrier so that we can truly open up all the resources from governments, from the private sector, from the images that are taken by drones, by balloons, by your cars, everything. And imagine the scale of that. So it goes back to lowering the barriers, making the data fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. And we need you, because that's why I think, it would help a lot. I can't go to the future by myself. The best thing I heard at SIGGRAPH was, it's not you and me who are doing stuff in the metaverse. We're actually preparing it for the next generation, right? So we need the next generation to engage with us, because we have to test together, we have to explore together, we have to fail together, we have to experiment together, we have to collaborate. And that's why I keep saying, please join us so that we know what kind of applications you're building, and then what kind of connections you want, so that we can develop them together. So we make sure we actually develop the things you're going to need for not just 5 years. I want to be here. We've been here for 28, has to be for another 28. And that only happens if we just work together. So that's my ask, join OGC so that you can help us make sure that geospatial is truly working for the metaverse like it's magic, but it's not. It's because we work together.
Yes, like it's magic, and the human to human interaction, human to data interaction, human machine interface, everything is ongoing, emerging technologies. Everybody is maybe having the utility of the data. We are using Google Map instead of paper map like 30 years ago, but also contributing, to optimizing the data set with all the effort from the entrepreneur and from the community. Thank you so much for all this work and vision of OGC and the global effort, also for contributing to the open metaverse. We, I'm sure, are super inspired by the fairness and the vision of OGC, and hopefully a lot of people from our community will reach out to you also for contributing, for suggestions, and for building together.
Thank you so much. You summarized it very nicely. we're building something that's bigger than any of us. So yes, let's definitely connect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Nadine Alameh. Maybe by concluding, I know the official website is ogc.org. Is there any other way the community can reach out to you?
Yes, I'm on Twitter at NADINESA. Nadinesa is sort of my nickname since I was at MIT. It's another geeky thing. I'm on LinkedIn, and so is OGC. So we're out there. We have a Discord channel. So reach out, and I can then follow up with some ways to engage with us.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Alameh. Yes, let's keep in touch, and let's build the future of Open Metaverse together. Thank you so much.
Thank you.